All right, folks, welcome on into another edition of the High School Huddle, your one-stop shop for everything and all things Section 5 sports. I'm AJ Fellman. He is Carl Jones. Carl, we are back to our normal show. We got no guests in the house today. We want to once again thank Karen and Drar for coming in last week. Some basketball knowledge, some mental health discussion, but we're back and we're into the heart of sectional championship season. Basketball is going to start up next week. Hockey is going to start. Well, it's actually underway right now. We're going to get into our hockey preview in just a little bit. But we've got some other sports going on, awarding some champions. States are already underway in some of this stuff. And we teased it last week on the show. How about the performance by the Pittsford boys swimming team? You were there. You got to see the tail end of it and see the dominance. Their 22nd straight sectional title. And we teased it last week. A sweep of all swimming events. Really, really something by the Pittsford boys there.
I mean, remarkable. It was, you appreciate dominance. I'm a guy in all my sports, regardless if it's NFL. And I know Bills fans don't want to hear that, seeing the Chiefs win yet another Super Bowl. But I'm a big fan of dominance and seeing greatness. And it's the way that when Pittsburgh walks in the aquatic center, they hanging up they Letterman's jackets like, hey, this is not our house, but we about to treat it as such today, all right? They got all day Letterman jackets just beautifully laid up on the wall, and they're like, you know what? Who coming in second place? That like kind of how like Larry Bird did in like one of those, I think it was the 86 three-point contest. So like, hey, who competing for second place today? And that's kind of the vibe that it was out there. Just a remarkable performance, and I know we always talk about, oh, they're really good. Well, they took it to another step last week.
Yeah, they had 4 swimmers who each won 2 individual events, which is pretty sure the most you can compete in individually. So who knows what they would have done if they could have done more. And yeah, they had more points than second and third place combined. One thing that caught my attention when I talked to their coach, Rick Schmidt, when I went out to Pittsburgh, did the story on Mr. Cam Stetzer, is that he was talking about the run and the sectionals. And he's like, I can't take credit for all of them. I've only been here for 15 of those titles. And like just the sentence, the nonchalance, only 15 of those titles. Schools, exist for a very long time to try and get to 15 titles. And he's just like 3/4 of the way into this run talking about only 15 titles, Carl.
But that's how you kind of got to go about it to like duplicate success year after year after year. I mean, you can't think about last year, the year before that. And that was one of the things I talked to him after the meet. I was about to say game. After the meet is that he was like, I don't really let any of these new guys talk about the titles from the early 2000s. Every year you got to win your own title, which sounds good and fine and dandy. I told him this, but you also dealing with 15 and 16-year-old kids who do look at that type of stuff. Like it's hard for Nick Saban when he's at Alabama to not tell the new guys, hey, don't care about what they did 5 years before you got here. Now, coach, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So like, it's kind of that type of yin and yang. And I do got to give the respect to the coaching staff for keeping those kids level grounded, level headed, and the eye on the prize at all times.
No, Mr. Cam Stetzer said he was terrified before his first sectional meet as a sophomore to keep that streak alive. So, they do the best they can. It certainly led to some championships. Swimming, other classes went on. McQuaid had a big win, a nice win, their first ever sectional title. They were our primetime spotlight team of the week. A lot of young athletes there. I was at the bowling sectional championships. Girls were Tuesday and Wednesday. Boys are happening today on Thursday and Friday. I was at the Class A and B. Fairport won the Class A title. Canandaigua leading the way with both the high game and the high series. And then the Arcadia Titans, they won the championship in Class B. All 5 of their bowlers finished in the top 14, so a really consistent effort from them over there. And then C and D, it was Newark, who have won a lot of titles recently in bowling, I know, and then Bloomfield won in Class D, so congratulations to them. We got Alpine and Nordic going. I think they've either wrapped up or they've just wrapped up. One thing I do want to note, girls hockey, that happened last night. Webster Lakers, as the only team in Section 5, they get an automatic trip to the state tournament, just by being them, by existing. They played Kenjiport, Kenmore, Grand Island, Lockport, the best team in the Buffalo area. They played in the regular season. Webster lost 7-0. So I went into that night thinking, I don't know if I'm even going to show it if they lose 7-0. It took them to overtime. They lost 4-3 in OT. A heartbreaking finish there. They had a kind of a controversial too many players on the ice penalty where there was it really wasn't that long of a shift change, but they flagged them for it. They penalized them for it. Turned into the power play winner. So heartbreaking for them, but what a great, story. We've talked about it before that they're the only team. They're traveling for their games. They're going to Buffalo. They're going to Syracuse. They're going to Ithaca. And just that stat of 7-0 to taking them to overtime just shows how much they've grown and improved. I think they lost their first like 5 or 6 games. They really weren't all close. They won 2 games down the stretch. They got a tie. They're really building something there in Webster.
You're talking about like beginning of the year to end of the year, how much they've grown. Imagine 2, 3, 4 years down the line where you can get some chemistry, where you can develop a pipeline of young ladies all across section 5. I mean, not section 5, across Webster, who want to play. And obviously they've shown that with the numbers they put on the ice this year, but just more reps together. I know that a lot of them are playing, kind of balancing their club teams with their high school teams, and that's his own challenge in his own right. But regardless, the growth from November to where we are now is a lot. I can't imagine from 2023 to 2026. It's just the level of play and how much that's going to rise as the more reps they get on the ice.
Yeah, and you talk about the playing the club schedules. Like I'd imagine that factored a little bit of it too. Just getting chemistry with your line mates and learning how everybody plays, because they're not really practicing that much. They practice like 1 time a week because they have all these club schedules that they didn't want to interfere with. So congratulations to the Lakers for getting it done. And we will see who joins them in the state tournament on the boys' side of their things. It's time to get into our hockey sectional preview. It comes at a little bit of an awkward time just with our recording schedule, because tonight are the quarterfinal games for basically just about every game in Class A and B, 7 of the 8. So, by the time you listen to this, one of these top favorites could have knocked off. One of these, intriguing quarterfinal games is already over. So, but we're going to do the best we can. We're going to give our hockey players some love, because next week we're going to dive into the basketball schedule. So, Carl, why don't you lead us off as we dive into the Class A boys hockey sectional bracket?
Here we go. We're going to start with the big dogs. Pittsford, looking to repeat in Class A. Can they do it? They finished with a 17-2-1 record. One of the losses came to McQuaid, who we're going to talk about a little bit later. And then also Batavia Notre Dame, who has been the shock of Section 5, and they've kind of taken to just about everyone that they faced this year. The thing that's unique about Pittsford, they don't give up a lot of goals. That's not unique to what we've seen in the past. But for the first time in a while, they put up a lot of points. They've had 104 goals scored this year. That is the most in Section 5. In previous iterations of Pittsford, 75, 67. This is clearly a different group in terms of their offensive attack and how they maybe the better players on the ice, different philosophies, whatever the case may be. And it shows up in their stat book as well. I believe they have 6 players in double digits, led by Brady McMahon. I know we showed him a couple times on Section 5. I mean, on our highlights, 16 goals with 29 assists. You can go down the line of players who have executed for them and showed up. And then also, you can't have a good team without a good goalie. Wilson Sedillo. If I didn't get that right, my bad, my boy. We'll get it right before the end of these sectionals end up. He hasn't lost this year when in net. 12-0, leads all of Section 5 with a 1.6 goal allowed average. They're the favorite, rightfully so. They've taken down just about anyone in their path outside of, once again, McQuaid. But that was a season opener. So, once again, totally different teams. We'll see how they match up as it goes on. McQuaid is the second seed team, and this is a team that I know that you want to mention a little bit based off where they've been in the past and how they're trying to maybe change some things this year.
Yeah, McQuaid, they're the number 2 ranked team here in Section 5. They're 4th overall in Division 1 in New York State. The thing that I'm really intrigued to, find out about this McQuaid team, they've had some really good teams in the past. It has been a long time since that regular season success has parlayed into sectional success. They last won a sectional championship in 2015. They ended up going all the way and winning the state championships last year. But their recent history, last year they were the number 1 seed in all of Section 5 in Class A. They lose to Pittsford, the 4 seed, in the semifinals. They lose 2-1. 22, they're the 3 seed. They lose to the 2nd seeded Victor Blue Devils in the semifinals. 21, they have a down year. They don't make the kind of condensed sectional tournament. 2020, they lose in the semifinals as a 6 seed. They could still go on a decent run there. 2019, they lose as a 1 seed to Pittsford in the semifinals. 2018, they lose as a 2 seed to Penfield in the semifinals. 17 and 16, once again, they can't go all the way win a sectional championship. So it's been a long time since the McQuaid Knights have gone to a sectional championship with having some really good teams, with having some really good players. They've got, an experienced coach to talk to them last year. They have all the pieces. They have scorers, they have goaltenders, but it just hasn't clicked for them in sectional championships. And, hockey is so tough. They do this thing in the playoffs and, the NHL or in college. Generally, these are all series and, the cream can usually rise to the top. You play one game in high school hockey and you run into a hot goalie, the puck doesn't bounce your way, boom, you're out. So I don't want to vilify them too much for, not getting it done in the semifinal round, but I know they're sick of losing in the semifinals. I know they're probably sick of, having all this success in the regular season, not coming up in the playoffs. So this is probably the big thing I'm going to be watching in Division 1 is figuring out how McQuaid, whether or not they can get it done, because, it's not going to be easy for them to win this sectional title. That's for darn sure.
Not at all. We're going to rattle off the rest of the teams that are left in the playoffs. Penfield will be taking on Fairport tonight. Penfield, the 3 seed, Fairport, the 6. Penfield, Sean Walsh is one of the best players in Section 5. He's up there in some of the scoring ranks. Bobby Kane and Angelo Latore are also some phenomenal players on that Penfield team. Hilton, the 4 seed, will be taking on Portside Royals. Hilton has Aiden Hill, one of the best goalies in Section 5. If you're going to a Hilton game, I'm sorry, you're probably not gonna get a lot of goals, and that's his fault. So he's a good player, and that's a compliment to him. So that's and speaking on the teams who will be playing against Pittsford and McQuaid, Bree Storm will be linking up with McQuaid, and then Spartan Hockey up against Pittsford. Once again, I've learned since I've been around this hockey culture here in Rochester. Everything looked good on paper, but the thing called puck luck is real. Get a hot goalie. I know a few years back, the Schrader goalie, my man looked me dead in my eyes and said, I listened to your podcast and I took it personal. And you know what? I respect you for that. So, hey, whoever going to rise to the occasion and go above the stat sheet and the names on the paper, be my guest. I'm going to offer stories like that. But right now on paper, Pittsford's the favorite, but there are a bunch of players in Class A who can get the job done as well.
Yeah, the thing that really sticks out, intrigues as well is Penfield. You got Sean Walsh, you got Bobby Kane, you got Angelo Latore. And when it gets to the playoff time, unless you're going, these overtime, double overtime, triple overtime games that Carl has been going every single time he goes out there, you can really go really far based on one line. You double shift them, you call your timeouts, you get them on the ice in the offensive attacking areas. You can go pretty gosh darn far with, one line, 2 lines. So, you don't really trot them out as much in the regular season because you don't want to, break the skates on them. But you can go really far. Sean Walsh, I believe, just named Monroe County Player of the Year or Solo Player of the Year. So that's the team I'm going to be watching for sure.
I can't wait. I ain't seen a lot of hockey once again because of the Bill season and they want to play until January, whatever, and then lose again at home. But that's another topic for another day. I can't wait this time of year. Y'all didn't tell me about playoff hockey, and it's lived up to the billing every single year.
Yeah, the other thing about hockey, which is really kind of been a buzzkill this year, a lot of these games, they would play a ton on Saturday, Section 5 against Section 5, where that's where we kind of get out there a bunch. They're playing, I feel like this year they played a lot more games on Friday where we're doing our round ball roundup. So we admit our hockey's, filming schedule was a little bit less than it's been in years past, but we will certainly ramp it up come sectional time. Moving over to Class B, obviously you start off with Batavia Notre Dame. Number 1 seed in Section 5, ranked number 3 in the state. Honestly, I think that's a little bit low for them in New York State. I mean, they're undefeated in Section 5 play. They've just passed all the tests so far this year. They got Milovodov. They got Matika. Milovodov, second in points. Matika right there behind him. That's another team where, they're balanced, they're deep, but they got the star power. So you start, shortening these shifts and, condensing your lines. They're going to really thrive. You've got Schrader at number 2, ranked 5th in the state, right behind him. They played earlier this season. Batavia Notre Dame took them down 4-3. You know, they've got some heavy hitters as well. Nick Soletto, TJ Swinson. They're going to face Churchville China in the first round, the 7th seed. And then you've got 2 more state-ranked teams. Thomas at number 3 in Section 5 seeding. They're ranked 12th in the state. And then you got to watch out for Victor at number 4, ranked 20th in the state, as we previously mentioned, just barely in Class B because one family decided to move out of town, apparently. You know, Batavia Notre Dame, they've beaten all of these top teams. They beat Victor 4-2. They beat Thomas 5-2. As I mentioned, they took down Schrader 4-3. Victor did get an overtime victory against Schrader. So that was their 4-3 game. The only time they played, Schrader took down Thomas 4-1. So it's going to be a really fun bracket. Because, you know, you might get this matchup of Batavia Notre Dame and Victor in the first round or in the semifinals. And B, if bracket holds serve, you got Thomas and Schrader going off Webster versus Webster semifinals in the, in the Class B semifinals. That's going to be a raucous game. That's going to be a fun game. It's going to be fun to see if anybody can take down Batavia Notre Dame.
That's going to be the key right there. There's no like overselling the type of team that they put together this year. In the past, they've kind of always put up a lot of numbers, but it really hasn't translated to wins. But boy, I mean, we have this segment called Section 5 Best, where we just put together the 5 best stories of the week in terms of high school. Their top line can be there every week. I just don't want to be disrespectful to the rest of Section 5 hockey, if I'm going to be real with y'all. But another thing that I just realized in the last 5 minutes, and you guys at home might not care, but I do. The sectional championships this year are played at RIT. This makes a massive difference, folks. Not for the play on the ice, but for me, okay? Because when I go out to SUNY Brockport, it is not a fun place to shoot. I'm not gonna lie, because I either got to shoot behind fans and y'all be in the way because y'all cheering on y'all little Johnny out there on the ice, and it's tough. But like at RIT, there are plenty of places where I can prop my camera up and look all nice and make y'all kids look good on the TV. So whether it is Batavia Notre Dame who raises the brick, whether it's Schrader, I've seen you guys a lot. Shout out to TJ Swinson. You were the first goal I ever shot, and boy, it was nice a couple years ago. Thomas, whatever the case may be, I'm just happy we at the Gene Pelosi over at RIT because I want y'all kids to look good on TV. That's my rant for today. I'm sorry, y'all.
Yeah, I was there filming on Sundays when it wasn't RIT. It is definitely a much better experience for the shooting. They even brought us some pizza for the media suite for the doubleheader there. So maybe that's something Carl looking forward to. That should be a good time at RIT, especially student sections. They still bring it at Brockport, etc. But a little bit closer to home when they're playing at RIT as opposed to over there in Brockport. Another thing I want to note about this Class B bracket. The quarterfinal game later today, Victor versus Canandaigua. I think the team that wins this game is going to be a really intriguing case, whoever it is, to take down Batavia Notre Dame. You got Victor, the pedigree. You got Simon Cole. It's a Mendon girls basketball type thing. It's a Spencerport girls soccer type thing where no matter what happens in the regular season, I'm sorry, you wear the Victor Blue Devil on your chest, I'm going to think a little higher of you come sectional playoff time. And B, on the Canandaigua side for the Grey Wolves, they've got Mr. Charlie Fuller in net, a .913 save percentage, the best goaltender in Class B, save for Batavia Notre Dame's goalie, who just has a star-studded team in front of him. So Mr. Fuller might be a type of guy who can go on a run, make a lot of saves, and get hot at the right time and lead his teams to a sectional championship. So that's certainly a game that I think we're going to have circled on our schedule tonight to go and film, so you can watch those highlights on News 8. And if not, it's going to be fun either way, because whoever wins that game, Batavia and Notre Dame ain't going to get no pushover in the semifinals.
Hey, but if you want to raise the brick, it ain't going to be easy, and you should want it that way. Once again, I know I sound like a broken record here. I truly can't wait for playoff hockey because as a kid, I wasn't really into hockey. I'm not gonna lie to you, but whether it's the Amerks, playoff high school hockey, the intensity goes up a little bit. You can feel the tension in the crowd. Parents, I be seeing y'all be a little bit more tense on edge on the seats. Oh my gosh, is he going to do it? Like that type of vibe. The student sections, they go all out a little bit more often because they, during the year, they're like, we just gonna wait for the Fridays for the hoops. And plus, like AJ just alluded to, the hoop schedule been overlapping a little bit. So it's been tough to get the nice crowds for the hockey game.
It's cold.
Man,
it's tougher to get people out there when it's cold.
Exactly. So, hey, I can't wait. The atmosphere is going to be lit, and that's everything that you dream of this time of year.
So yeah, hockey sectionals well underway. Basketball will be starting up next week. We do not have a round ball roundup for you because there are no games on Friday. So today, as we record this on Thursday, the last day of the regular season, on next week's podcast, we're bringing Karen and Gerard Iglesia back to preview sectional basketball. We're going to do our draft. Thad is going to be the commissioner of the draft. He's going to help announce the pick, run the show, be a little MC there. So it should be a really fun time. I've been promised that Karen and Gerard are going to be on separate teams and, yapping it up and, ribbing each other for their picks, etc. So it should be a really fun time. I will just note that I won the draft last year over Carl, so I've got the belt. We'll see who's going to take it from me. But before we get into next week's show, we just want to highlight one thing that kind of we learned over the last week of Section 5 basketball. One thing we're watching going into this basketball tournament before we really dive into it next week. So, Carl, what's the one thing that really stood out for you recently here in hoops?
It's really been the last 2 weeks, but I would say Class AAA boys is a lot closer than we would have thought maybe in mid-December, late December, when Aquinas got off to that hot start, taking down everybody in front of them. And I still think Aquinas is a very good team, but they've got 3 losses in the past 2 weeks. All the AAA, 2 to AAA teams, one to Bishop Kearney, who is I believe in Class A, but UPrep and Franklin, 2 teams that they could see in the sectional playoffs. So that kind of it puts them more on takes them off that pedestal, right, that we thought that maybe they were on earlier this season. And then some other games. Franklin, I mean, the past 2 weeks, taking down East, that is an impressive win no matter what classification the East is in. Beating Monroe, I believe, taking them down by 20 on the road after the game was closed. And then Schrader, a game that I was trying to get out to, but y'all pulled away in the third quarter also because I was locked out the gym. But that's a conversation for another day. They blowing them out by 20 points. They won't see Schrader in the postseason, but Schrader is also a competent team that could make some noise in this postseason. Also, obviously, Fairport, led by Lashard Lowry, Ajon and I know if you got guards, you can go far in the playoffs, and they probably have one of, if not the best point guard here in Section 5. I haven't talked about Edison Tech, who can get hot because of Davion Lipscomb. AAA, about a month ago, I'd have been like, this is Aquinas' bracket to run away with, and we'll see if Fairport can make some noise. Nah. All right, quarterfinals is up in the air no matter who is out there, and I think that's cool to see this time of year.
Yeah, more inside baseball. There are really 2 gyms in Section 5 that when you go up to it, you're just begging that someone's there to let you in the door. You got Franklin, because they lock the doors at halftime, and it's really on the out. It's there's a staircase. It's tough to get the attention of anyone in the gym. And then there's Athena, because you go into the Athena gym, you have to walk down basically half a mile to get there. So you're just praying you get there on time for Athena. So the fact that you got locked out of a Franklin game is hilarious to me. The only real reason why I got in to Franklin East last week is because there was some sort of minor medical emergency where they were like wheeling somebody out on a stretcher. Everything seemed fine. Nobody, the games was playing. So I'm confident that, this woman was all right. But I just got in because there were like paramedics wheeling somebody out. They had security guards and everything. So I'm like, all right, I'm in. I'm cool. They weren't letting any fans in at that point, but you flashed the big camera. You get into places. But no, back to the basketball itself. You got 7 teams in here. And really, it's going to be tough for maybe an Edison or a McQuaid to go on a deep run, but you only got to win 3 games in this bracket. So any team can get hot for 3 games, and all of those teams, including Edison, McQuaid, UPrep, RH, they have had the ability and they have beat these top teams. So really, you can't count anybody out slouting AAA.
No, not at all. And there are some really darn good players in that classification. Aquinas, they kind of have a 6 or 7. So I don't even want to just put one person above the rest on that team. Lashard Lowry, and then I believe Aiden White, the big fella down there, he's put up several 30-point games this year. Franklin, led by the Thompson twins. Terrence Thompson, I believe, just dropped another 20 and 20 as we recorded this. It's a lot of stars here in that classification in general. So we'll see when the lights get a little brighter, the games mean a little bit more, who's going to rise to the top of the crop.
And the fun thing about that that AAA boys game is going to be the main attraction on Friday night at Blue Cross Arena. Usually, they added this class. It's been, Class C is basically take up the BCA on Friday, and then everybody else goes on Saturday. Sticking AAA on Friday. So we got a main attraction for our round ball roundup on Friday night. That's something I'm looking forward to. And what I want to talk about is something that we've, talked about ad nauseum on the show, but it has really kind of, configured things out in the past few weeks is AA girls. And I say this because going into the past week or so, my belief was I really liked what Hilton and Bishop Kearney was doing specifically because of the fact that they have the stars. They've got Mallory Hayes and Bishop Kearney's got Asia Wilson. So, anytime we go to a sectional tournament, I like my stars, I like my guards. And if I want to put the ball in two girls' hands in Section 5, I want it in one of those two. So I was kind of like, you know what? Canandaigua, Schrader, Victor, Menden, Penfield, they're all fine and good, but I like those two studs. Well, the past week or so, Victor kind of shut me up. They took down Hilton in overtime. A really fun game, a really close game. Ryland Fehrenbach, I believe, had 34 points. The question with Victor is going to be how they score in crunch time because they're just so athlete driven. They're so defense driven. What will they do in the crunch? But they shut me up in overtime. They had a little bit of trouble in the fourth quarter to let Hilton back in that game, but they shut me up in overtime for sure. And then Schrader taking down Bishop Kearney last week. Bria Watkins was doing Mariah Watkins type things. It's easy to make the comparison there, but she was getting it done in crunch time. She got the clutch bucket with 30 seconds to go to take down the Lady Kings. Hilton's obviously still up there. Hilton just took down Schrader. Menden, you can never count them out too much. Canandaigua, they've got their, Kylie Chapman, Macy Bacon, they're always going to be difficult to take down. But I think my beliefs of Class A kind of got shattered a little bit where it's tough to say who's the favorite in Class A. It's got to be Victor just based on the record and who they've beaten so far. They redeemed that earlier big season loss to Hilton. But we're going to have this draft next week. I don't know how many of these teams are going to get picked just because it's going to be so gosh darn even.
Right. And you make a very valid point about Victor and how they score the rock, right? And, man, they go through lulls at times. I've seen a couple myself, especially at the Schrader game at Victor about 2 weeks ago. But for some odd reason, they still figure out ways to pull the game out in the clutch, no matter, like, when you need a bucket, right? When you need a score and things of that nature. They find a way. I mean, I know at Penfield, y'all didn't score literally a bucket, but y'all found a way. Schrader, y'all found another way twice this year to beat them by 1 point. So I get it. I'm with you. Like, you know what? It's not pretty at times for them. Sometimes they really just can't get, like, Ryland Fehrenbach is not cooking like she usually does sometimes. And Devin Livingston is a lacrosse player, so maybe she's not hitting her 1-2 as she usually does. But for some reason, when it comes down to when the clock gets under 2 minutes, they figure out a way to get it done. And at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. So we'll see if that continues into sectional play. But it's not like they've been blowing teams out and been holding on at the end. No, they've been making plays at the end of games to figure things out and win. So I do want to give them their flowers for that regard. But to the larger point, all these teams can go off any given day. And I wouldn't be surprised if literally any result and seeing who raises the brick in 2 weeks.
Yeah, Victor can get some shooting because that's kind of one of their other downfalls is that, teams can kind of just pack it in on a zone and, they're just slash and drive and let's see if we can get something going. So they can get a little hot behind the 3-point line. Watch out for the Victor Blue Devils. So yeah, we will dive into much more of that next week on the show when we bring in Primetime 585. We talk about all these teams, all these brackets, etc. But we got a lot of good stuff cooking. We got hockey playoffs. We got playoffs of other sport. We got states coming up. We got competitive cheerleading championships on Saturday for the sectional final. So that'll be a good time. It's getting fun, Carl. It's prime time, baby. It's prime time for
and
the
we're
News 8
indoors.
Folks. Yes.
And we're indoors. Like, it's different in the fall when you say those words. I'm like, yay, kids. Woo, they get to play tough. Yay. But we indoors this time. So you know what? I'm actually happy for everyone cheerleading, y'all indoors. Hockey, y'all might be a little cold, but I can put a hat on and I'll be good. And then basketball, y'all know what it is in that regard. So I'm really, truly excited and can't wait for the postseason and beyond for these winter sports.
Yeah, speaking of the weather, I did end up going golfing last week. Didn't get a chance to brag about my score. 2 under for 9 holes. Perfect round. 7 pars, 2 birdies. Almost had a hole in one. I just have to brag about it any chance I get. Well, enough talking about my golf game. It's time to get the heck out of here. For Carl Jones, I'm AJ Feldman. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, RochesterFirst.com, and YouTube. Thank you for watching, listening, subscribing, all that good stuff. It is time to break the huddle. We will see you next week with Karen and Gerard Iglesia. Enjoy the sectional playoffs, and we'll see you next time.